This is the journey of a young girl who went from a single schoolgirl protesting outside a Swedish parliament to become an international climate activist. With her efforts, climate change is now one of the center of all global discussion. However, despite achieving so much and being loved by many, she's also been a victim of an immense amount of pressure and criticism, creating a dilemma around her that many people can't solve. Greta was born on January 3rd in 2003 in Stockholm, Sweden. Now, her family held a deep connection with the art world. Her mom, Malina Iman, is an opera singer, and her father, Greta Thunberg, is an actor. Her childhood was filled with cultural experiences, but Greta never was one to find interest in the arts that her family was involved with. At the age of 8, she learned about climate change, and since then, her focus in life completely shifted. But her life soon took a drastic turn when at the age of 11, she started experiencing severe depression. She stopped talking, stopped going to school, and even stopped eating. Now, during this period, she was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, a type of autism spectrum disorder. Now, people with Asperger's have specific interests that they intensely focus on, and for Greta, it was climate change. Now, she's never seen her disease as a limitation. To her, it's a superpower. Now, she views the world in black and white. After she was diagnosed and her passion for climate change grew, her family catered to her by going environmentally friendly to support her cause. They also became vegan, installed solar panels, and also gave up flying to reduce their carbon footprint. When she turned 15, Greta decided to take her climate activism one step forward.
The people I care about, who I meet, they know that it's not me. And if I meet people personally, they can see that I'm not angry.
In August 2018, she started a school strike for climate outside the Swedish parliament. Throughout the protest, she held a sign saying, "School strike for climate." Now, at the start, she was alone, but her protest quickly gained people's attention and support. Now, it's a global movement called Fridays for Future. The students from all over the world joined Greta's cause, and there was multiple climate strikes in various countries including Belgium, Canada, the United States, and the United Kingdom. Soon, her activism gained international recognition after she had the opportunity to give powerful speeches at high-profile events like the World Economic Forum in Davos, the European Parliament, and the UN Climate Action Summit in New York City. Now, her famous words, "You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words," was enough to raise an uproar for urgent climate action to be taken by the world's authorities. Her efforts were labeled as the Greta effect, to show how her influence and hard work have led to a rapid increase in the spread of climate awareness and kickstarting climate activism. Just as an example, her statements against air travel led to an increase in train travel in Sweden. Of course, success comes with a price, and for Greta, the price has been to be the victim of intense criticism from around the world. While environmentalists like Bill McKibben and David Suzuki praised her for her dedication to reducing emissions, other critics have said that her message and work are dramatic and driven by fear. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro claimed her a brat, but former U.S. President Donald Trump taunted her with emotional cries for help. Now, even Russian President Vladimir Putin labeled her as a kind but poorly informed teenager. Now, other critics have made her age and style their target. Now, some say her straightforward style might not be the best way to address climate change. According to these critics, her boldness and audacious words can lead to her losing some potential allies. But despite whatever's been said about her, Greta hasn't wavered in her mission to make a prominent contribution to the solution and prevention of climate change. Now, one can argue that her position of privilege is the main reason for her perspective. Now, she is, after all, a white girl from Sweden, a country that's got advanced infrastructure and pretty low carbon emissions. Now, as such, her activism doesn't really represent the actual countries that are facing the brunt of climate change already. Third world countries like Kenya and South Africa. Now, kids there are already living the reality of climate change, and it's as harsh as it gets. Now, these countries face droughts, unpredictable weather, food insecurity, and whatnot, and these are issues that Greta ain't faced. Now, ultimately, her view on climate change has got a very Western-centric focus to it. Maybe a better advocate for climate change would be the actual kids who is experiencing the results of it in the present moment. Now, all this success, recognition, fame, and criticism takes its toll on a person. For Greta, her Asperger's syndrome is not only a challenge, but also her biggest asset in the fight for climate change. Due to her disease, she's got an intense focus on the concept, and while this has driven her activism, it's also resulted in a lot of online abuse and bullying for the girl. Critics have fallen so low as to mock her health.
Cutting our emissions in half in 10 years only gives us a 50% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees.
At one point, she was also receiving death threats, so she was under constant police protection while traveling the world. Despite whatever life has thrown her way, Greta's managed to remain firm in her resolve. Now, she's got a unique scientific understanding of the climate crisis, and she ain't afraid to tell it to the world. Now, she's even published books regarding it. No one is too small to make a difference, and The Climate Book. Whatever her success, we can't ignore the fact that after all, she's a young kid who's expected to lead a global movement and provide solutions to climate problems that no one's ever been able to solve. All the while handling the pressure of being famous and fighting with her disease too. All of this comes with its emotional burden, which is far too difficult for a teenager to handle on her own. All these expectations placed on her can be extremely overwhelming. Now right now, she's not a simple climate activist, but a role model for a lot of people. Now whatever she does is under scrutiny, and her words carry a lot of weight. Now of course, media scrutiny never ends in public life, and consequently, even Greta's personal life, family, mental health, and motivations are scrutinized. But even with all these pressures tainting her life, Greta's still a huge advocate for urgent climate action. Now she takes all the pressure, scrutiny, and criticism and makes it her drive to put it more effort for something meaningful like activism. Now her commitment to the cause is absolutely unbreakable and commendable. Despite all the criticism and pressure, Greta has achieved a lot throughout her fight for climate change. She was named Times Person of the Year in 2019 and has received several nominations for the Nobel Peace Prize, but she ain't won one yet. Now still, it's her activism that's created some significant political and social changes. Countries and voters all over the world have started to focus on climate change and adapt environmental policies to prevent it. Now, she's also had an impact on popular culture. She's become a little bit of a symbol. Musicians like Pearl Jam and Fatboy Slim have used her speeches in their songs. A British street artist, Banksy, created a mural of Greta in Bristol, England. Now, this mural's now a landmark there. Now, there's also been a lot of documentaries and films featuring her. The 2020 documentary, I Am Greta, gave an insight into her life, sort of like a behind-the-scenes perspective of her whole journey. Her signature look, braided hair and yellow raincoat, is a symbol of environmental consciousness in use across the world today. Now, her famous plea, "How dare you," at the UN summit caused a global uproar against climate change. Now, her efforts and work especially resonate with the younger generations, with their main concern being that it is they who are going to face this uncertain future. I mean, once all the older generations age out, who's going to be left behind by all these kids?
But, of course, we can still turn this around. It is entirely possible. It will take drastic annual emission cuts unlike anything the world has ever seen.
Now, currently, Greta's ongoing efforts include active participation in environmental protests. She also has multiple meetings with global leaders where she calls for immediate changes to be made and policies to be implemented to fight the climate change at hand. Without a doubt, Greta has become a powerful icon for activism and climate change, especially for the youth. She's shown the world that ain't no matter what the disease, no matter the pressure or the scrutiny. All it takes is determination and hard work to make a positive change in the world. Now, her efforts and intentions are pure, which is why her achievements only grow as she's able to inspire and drive a global movement for climate change.